when we were trying these cases, we were trying one after the other.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up spending like the better part of a year in San Francisco. And every morning when I was in San Francisco before court, I would go down to the courthouse, to the gym
Mm-hmm.
in Union Square. Union Square is the center of San Francisco, and it's the center of commerce. It has all the big, iconic American stores like Macy's and Bloomingdale's and Nordstrom and Gap and Old Navy and Levi, and then it has all the foreign stores like Prada and De La Valle and Gucci and
Ferragamo.
Hermes, Ferragamo and Burberry and all of those. So it's like Fifth Avenue.
It's fancy.
It is the Fifth Avenue and people come from Asia all over to do their shopping there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I went back 3 weeks ago and it was astonishing. Those houses or those stores are all boarded up.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of them is closed.
Wow.
And they're closed because all of the homeless on the street, the chaos that's going on the street in San Francisco makes people feel unsafe. Here's what, my son, actually, because I had a lot of assumptions about why people are homeless.
Mm-hmm.
And it's there's 525,000 homeless people in this country. But 50% of the unsheltered homeless are in California.
Okay.
So California only has 12% of the population, but it has 50% of the unsheltered homeless.
And unsheltered homeless means homeless that don't have a place to sleep at night?
Yeah, it's people who are, on the sidewalks.
Like freelance, yeah.
Right, or they're in shelter, they're...
Yeah, like free range.
Yeah. So here's my assumptions, that homelessness is linked to drug addiction. It's linked to mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
It's linked to, poverty, and that people are one of the reasons there's so many homeless in California is that everybody knows that San Francisco has this very generous kind of giving attitude towards social services. And so if you're homeless anywhere else in the country, you'd like to move to good weather.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in New York sleeping on a grate in the middle of winter when it's snowing. Get on a Greyhound and come out to San Francisco and and celebrate, right?
Yeah.
And I also had heard this, which turns out not to be true, that in some cities like Dallas or Nashville, if you are homeless, that they instead of putting you in jail, they give you a bus ticket to San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if it's true or not. But anyway, so my son turned me on to this writer called, my son Connor, who you know, Matthew Desmond. And Matthew Desmond has written these books on homelessness, and he's done these studies on homelessness. And they in San Francisco, they actually went around and interviewed thousands and thousands of homeless people. And what they found is that the people who are homeless in San Francisco are from San Francisco, and they're from California, and they didn't come from somewhere else.
So it's not a lot of people yet bust in or transplants or whatever.
Right. He also says this, that it has very little to do with drug addiction. The states like West Virginia has much more drug addiction than San Francisco, and yet it doesn't have a homeless problem. West Virginia has much worse poverty problem than San Francisco. San Francisco, actually, I think it's the richest city in the country. I may be wrong, but I think it's the richest. And it doesn't. So, and in terms of mental illness, you have to assume they're the same.
Yeah.
There's no reason. But also Detroit. Detroit has much higher drug addiction, much higher poverty, and it doesn't have a homeless problem. And what Matthew Desmond says is the reason for homeless, one reason is housing prices. It all has to do with housing prices. In California, we have the highest housing price in the country. Here in LA, where we are, the average home costs $815,000.
Wow.
which means you have to earn $250,000 to be able to pay to be able to pay for that.
And
home.
why do they get so high? Like, is it demand that makes them so high?
I'm going to tell you this: the average home in our country 2 years ago was $215,000. Today it's $400,000. And the interest rates have gone from 3 to 7%. So kids today, like your kids and my kids, are never going to buy a home. It used to be.
But if they're not going to buy a home, and the median price of homes sold by realtors has risen sharply since the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, and here's why this is happening. There's 3 big companies: BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. These are the biggest companies,
And they have a monopoly on a lot of the housing market, right?
What they do, they own everything.
Okay.
Including they own each other. So it's really just one big company. And BlackRock, it has $10 trillion under management. The GDP of California is $10 trillion. The GDP of California is $3 trillion. And so they're 3 times the size of California. California economy is the 5th largest in the world of all nations.
So when you have that much control, can't you just make your own universe? Can't you?
Well, so they own, those 3 companies own 88% of the S&P 500. Wow. So they basically just own everything. And now what they've decided is they want to own every single family home in our country. So they're now on track. There's now on trajectory. If we continue it on this trajectory, the corporations will own 60% of the single family homes in our country. And they pay nothing for money. So they're like, if you're the richest person in the country, BlackRock's cost of money is 30% lower than you. So they're competing against our kids, and your kids.
Why is it so different?
They want it now. They want to own everything. So
why is the percentage of the cost of the value of borrowing money?
Oh, because their credit is so impeccable.
Oh, I see. They have like a 900.
Yeah. Oh. So they got the better than the best credit rating.
I think I got 670 or something. I don't know. What's okay?
I don't know.
Yeah. But isn't that like privatized communism or something? That's what it feels like.
Well, yeah, it's like socialism for the rich, and this is barbaric, merciless, ruthless, savage capitalism for the poor.
Yeah. Do you think there's some trickle down effect to that makes people feel like? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was talking, we had this guy, John Vervaeke, on, and he talks a lot about meaning and stuff like that, And he said that people feeling like they're part of a country or they have like a part of a home, part of a group, it creates a lot of meaning for them, just in their life.
Well, yeah.
And I think I noticed even with my own, like, probably like our parents and stuff, I think a lot of them were very like pro-America and like, they had family members that died for our country and they, it meant something to them to be part of America. And then now I think a lot of them see this kind of unfolding or like kind of the flag kind of like fraying at the stitching, and I think it's very scary because if you start to feel like you don't have your country, then you start to feel like, okay, it's every man for himself in a way. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. And, and you're absolutely right. There's a poll that came out 3 weeks ago that showed that in 2013, kids between 18 and 35 years old, that 85% of young Americans said they were proud of the United States. And then another poll, the same poll, came out 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
That showed that only 17% of kids say that they're proud to be. I said it was really, devastating. But one of the things that you were saying, I think, is true, that if you own a home, you care more about your community. You care about the schools. You care about the police.
Oh, that's a great
point. You care
point.
about the hospitals. You take care of your garden. You make it look nice.
Yeah, you might be more likely to help your neighbor.
Exactly, because you're there. You're part of the community. And turning us all into, and you also are a participant in the capitalist system because if you own a home, you have equity.
Yeah.
Which means, let's say you want to start a business, even like a tiny business, like buying a sewing machine.
Yeah, doing sewing. What else can we do?
You can do, or if you want to start a restaurant,
popcorn, like a caramel corn.
Exactly.
Something like that.
Great idea.
Yeah. Thanks.
And
But you could get a loan off
You
your
can get
house.
a loan
Right.
on your house, and so you have an entree into the capitalist system.
Yeah, and because then you're always, everything's possible. You could sit down with your family at night and be like, hey, mom and dad are thinking about doing this business. What do you guys think? And maybe your son's proud of you, and it creates excitement in your house, you know? And even if, like, I remember my mom went to law school and she couldn't do it because she had too many kids and it was too much work, but I was still always proud of her that she tried to do it, you know? Like, I think, yeah, having the financial ability to do stuff like that is just so important, man. And then otherwise you feel, yeah, if you're just a renter, if everybody's a renter, you don't care, you just feel like you're like a renter by force. Like you don't even have a choice to be a renter, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of scary. How do we battle against that? And is it something that a president can do or a political official can do, or it's something that, how do we reverse that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's parts of their of what they're doing that, yeah, a president can deal with it. For example, they own all the packing companies. So there's only 4 meat packing companies, and those companies have a stranglehold on farmers and consumers. And they should have been prosecuted a long time ago for antitrust. But because BlackRock is so powerful, nobody will touch them.
Wow.
And so
That's a dark arts, huh?
yeah. I mean, they're just, what they're doing is they're just strip mining the wealth and equity from the American middle class. Yeah. And you see that,
Yeah, it's sad. And who is it? Who is BlackRock?
The head of it is the CEO is a guy called Larry Fink. He's also on the board of directors of the World Economic Forum. So in the World Economic Forum, meets in Davos. It's a billionaires boys club. They meet in Davos. They meet in Davos every year, and they try to figure out what their plans are for the rest of humanity.
Are they greedy?
I would say they have a bad reputation for very self-serving policies. Their big policy is called the Great Reset. And here's Klaus Schwab says, famously, he says, under the Great Reset, you will own nothing, but you will be happy. So that's what
they believe.
Yeah,
so they do have a belief. Their belief is that you will own nothing, but you'll be happy.
All of us will own nothing,
right.
But they will, because they will own everything. And they may be a little happier. Who knows?
Wow.